To say that we parted ways would be an understatement. Our two children graduated from college and found jobs on the other side of the continent. Beth was teaching in Oklahoma, and Jeff was working for a software development company in Denver. Our nest was empty. My wife, Bonnie, compensated for this by focusing more on her work. She worked for an advertising firm and progressed well there. Along with her new position came new responsibilities. I sold cement. It was a time when there wasn't as much work around, but construction was booming and equipment was in short supply. My company could guarantee delivery, and that came at a cost. Then I hit the jackpot. By the end of spring, I had sold almost everything I had planned for the year. I made more money than ever before and worked less. The rest of the year, I could spend just solving minor problems. I just needed to make sure the goods were delivered according to the contract terms and that we were paid. Since Bonnie was used to working late a few evenings a week, I agreed to meet with a good client to dine and drink. I had to meet him at a good hotel about an hour's drive from home. The hotel had an excellent reputation and a restaurant with exquisite cuisine. I arrived half an hour early, and as I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a Ford Explorer just like Bonnie's. I know they sell about 10 million of them each year. It's not unusual to see the same model, but then I noticed a yellow mark on the left rear tire. I drew it myself. When I looked for a puncture in the tire and thought I found it, I marked it to show the repairman at the tire shop. In reality, it turned out to be a faulty valve, but the mark on the tire remained. I knew that Bonnie could also treat clients to lunch. I considered my options. If she was with a client, it would probably be better if I stayed away. From my sales experience, I knew that the fewer distractions or additions to a commercial offer, the better. I went into the dining room and peeked out from behind the door, making sure I could see everyone before they noticed me. Bonnie wasn't in the room. The hostess approached, and when I mentioned my name, I saw Bonnie and her colleague coming out of the elevator, holding hands. I had met this guy several times before. I knew he was roughly my age, married, with a couple of kids and a high school education. I must have looked like a lovesick puppy watching his owner in a tiny room from the bar. The hostess patted my shoulder and asked if I would follow her to my table. When the stars and planets align correctly, coincidences are endless. They showed me my table very close to where Bonnie and Clyde were sitting. Some intricate lattice screens separated the bar's dining area, allowing eavesdropping on conversations. "Let's hurry up and finish," Romeo said. "I want to ride you one more time before we leave." I remembered his name. It was Robert James, a guy with 2 first names. He lived in the town next to ours. His wife was a petite woman, about 10 years younger than him. Their kids were very young. I once met her at a corporate Christmas party. I remembered not seeing her at the previous Christmas party. Right, that's when he was all over Bonnie. At that time, I was just having fun and not playing Sherlock Holmes, although I should have. "Bob, you're so excited," Bonnie laughed. "Where are you rushing all your energy?" "I'm saving it for you. Kathy is always tired. She's quite content with the fact that we have almost no sex. In fact, she even seems grateful when I come home late and just go to bed." "Does your husband try to please you?" he asked. "Brian hasn't shown any interest in intimacy with me for several weeks. Actually, since we started coming here together. Not that he isn't interested, but I got everything I needed from you. I don't want him to discover any traces of you on me or inside me," she laughed. "For him, I'm too busy and too tired. It's understandable to him." "Well, his loss is my gain," chuckled the bastard. "I like that you're saving yourself for me. Let's see how long you can keep that up, all right?" "I won't refuse Brian if he insists," Bonnie replied. "After all, he's my husband. I'll just deflect him. He's very attentive and won't pressure me. I can keep him at bay for a while." "It's driving me crazy, Bonnie. Keep yourself for me as long as you can. When things finally go my way, you'll tell me everything, all right?" the miserable bastard insisted. "Agreed, Bob. I'll take notes to tell you every detail," Bonnie agreed. I heard everything I wanted to hear, and even what I didn't want to. I knew Bonnie had been extremely busy lately, but I never suspected she was cheating on me. I sat and pondered all the ways our lives intertwined. We were financial partners. We had 2 children. She was my confidant and advisor. It never occurred to me that her suggestions and advice were less than sincere and didn't consider my interests. We were lovers. Well, at least we thought we were. I had a lot to reconsider. Luckily, they quickly finished their breakfast and returned to their home before my client arrived. He was a noisy guy and would have given away my presence if Bonnie was still sitting behind the lattice. Even after my lunch and negotiations, I was home earlier than Bonnie. I decided not to tell her that I knew about her game. I had to think about everything and decide what would be best for me. I realized that for the first time in many years, I had to make quite dramatic decisions without Bonnie's advice. It was clear that I needed to think about creating a life for myself where there would be no place for her anymore. I needed to learn more about myself and what I needed to become happy. It was almost 10 in the evening when Bonnie returned home. By that time, I was watching TV and feeling very pathetic. Why should I stay home while she's out having a blast? I needed to work on my life. "Hello, dear," she greeted me, kissing me on the cheek. I realized that the kiss was far more than I wanted from her. I'm not one of those guys who are willing to share their woman, at least not willingly. Since she slept with another man, I no longer felt like she was mine. I also didn't feel her loyalty or dedication. This connection was broken. It hurt me. I couldn't deny that. She told me about her tough day and went to bed. I sat in front of the TV, trying to decide if I should seek revenge, and if so, how. I pondered over this until late at night. I finally admitted to myself that she had been my wife, partner, and lover for too long to try to hurt her. We had 2 children. She was their mother. She took care of her needs. I needed to focus on mine. After many years of marriage and raising children, I had become accustomed to putting my own needs last. Now it was more important than ever for me to take care of myself and take steps to make my life what it should be. Focusing on her place would be a waste of my efforts and time. My happy life would be a better reward. That night, I slept very little. The next day, I woke up early. I left the house before Bonnie got out of bed. I really couldn't bear to see or hear her. The problem was, where should I go? I didn't even know that many establishments were open at 6 in the morning. Driving down a certain street, I saw several cars in a parking lot, and it wasn't a donut shop. I looked at the sign above the door and saw that it was a gym. Deciding to come in, I stopped and looked around the place. The girl told me that it was open from 5 in the morning until 11 at night. I thought this would give me the opportunity to come here and avoid Bonnie most of the time. I signed up. I went to work, feeling a little better than when I saw Bonnie with her jerk. I started my personal journey to the next stage of my life. During lunch, I overheard a few guys talking about their golf game. I used to play golf before I got married, but raising children took up all my free time and energy. I hadn't played in over 20 years, but I joined the conversation and they invited me to play with them on Saturday. I left the office early and bought myself golf clubs. I heard that tailor-made clubs are very good, so I spent almost $1,000 on a good set, bag, shoes, umbrella, balls, shirts, towels, and everything else that could be useful. It was the first time in many years that I did something special for myself. It felt great. Then I bought some things for the gym. I decided to shed a few pounds and maybe add a few years to my life. If I go on dates again, I need to look as good as possible. It was past 8 when I brought my purchases home. "Golf club?" Bonnie asked. "Have you been there? I was worried you weren't home when I came back from work." "Yes, I've taken up golf again," I confessed. "You don't usually come home this early, so I thought I could be a little late for once." "I'm not complaining, Brian. It's good that you have somewhere to go. You work hard enough to deserve it," Bonnie stated. "But you left early this morning. I'm just curious if anything happened." "What could be wrong, dear? A nice home, 2 beautiful children, a loving, faithful wife. That's what every man hopes for, but few have," I boasted. Bonnie gave me a quick look. Obviously, she didn't see any signs that I suspected her and smiled. By the time I unpacked my purchases, I realized I was very tired. I slept poorly and woke up early. "I'm exhausted," I told Bonnie. "I'm going to bed. See you tomorrow." She was surprised. It was around 9, and I never went to bed before the evening news. She must be happy, I thought. I made it easier for her to keep her secrets. and I fell asleep immediately, not hearing when she went to bed. The next morning, I got up at 4:30. I showered, shaved, and entered the gym a few minutes after 5. I tried out all the machines and selected a few that targeted the parts of my body I needed to work on the most. For a while, I used the treadmill and was shocked at how quickly I got tired. I started training at the right time. I was surprised by how many people were working out so early. I found them friendly and helpful. It was like a subculture where similar goals were shared, and they supported each other's efforts to achieve them. I worked up a sweat, took another shower, and headed to the office. After work, I headed to the training field. I took out a few of my golf clubs from my bag and spent an hour hitting golf balls. At first, I wasn't doing well, but soon I found a rhythm and was hitting the ball quite well. I realized that improvements in equipment over the last 20 years would help my game. I stopped at a small diner, had a leisurely dinner, and went home. It wasn't even 9 yet, and I was already in bed. Bonnie wasn't home, but I figured she was probably in bed with that jerk. It was the last thought I remembered before it was time to get up and go to the gym. Bonnie was asleep next to me, so at some point, she must have made it home after all. The same day after work, I bought a membership at a country club. Then I went and played with another guy there for some company. It was around 8 when I got back home. Bonnie was annoyed. "Why didn't you tell me you wouldn't be coming straight home after work, Brian?" she demanded. "Where are you going so early in the morning? Have you checked the answering machine, Bonnie? I left you a message, just like you usually do," I replied. I go to the gym on 5th Street in the morning. I've become too sluggish. I realized she felt silly for not even thinking to listen to the message. The shoe was on the other foot. "I should have checked the answering machine, but you never leave messages like I do," she weakly protested. "You never mention going to the gym. You should have told me. I can go there too." "Well, dear, please do, but it seems like you're already worn out all day and crash by night," I replied. "Do you want to wake up at 4:30 and go to the gym? Is this a passive-aggressive way to get me to have sex more often?" Bonnie asked. "Is that what you mean by saying I'm tired by night?" "Actually, that's not it," I replied with a wry smile. "I'm just trying to improve my health. Plain and simple. I invite you to join me." "So you're not trying to make me feel guilty about the lack of sex?" Bonnie echoed. "Not at all, Bonnie. I'm very considerate, as you well know. You work hard and under stress. You're exhausted when you come home," I reasoned. "I completely understand." "Well, okay, Brian. I had a pretty good day today, and I'm not as tired today, if you know what I mean," she shyly smiled. The thought of making love to her made me feel sick. I'd prefer to do without sex than to get scraps. "Well, that's great. I woke up early, worked out, and played golf. Today, I'm literally exhausted, and I'm going to hit the hay," I told her. Bonnie was stunned. Throughout the years we had spent together, she always decided when we would have sex. I never refused when it was offered. She assumed I would be thrilled with the bone she was throwing me. I left her standing there, speechless, and I felt that I was finally taking control of my life. And it felt great. I began playing golf right after work, whenever the weather permitted. I thought Bonnie would like it. It gave her the chance to not leave the house in the evenings. I wondered if Bob would wear out his sausage because of this. Over time, my game improved, and I played better than some of the guys who had been playing consistently for the last 20 years. I attributed some of my success to the gym. I could walk faster and further. My stomach, chest, and shoulders got stronger, and it helped me knock all the crap out of the golf ball. Soon, a woman a couple of years younger than me joined the gym. We hit it off right away and worked out together on the machines. We encouraged each other and joked around. The workouts became better and more interesting. Her name was Tiffany, and she was a lawyer. She worked at a small firm in a nearby town. Eventually, she told me about how she once came home from work early and found her husband messing around with the married neighbor. She divorced him and moved to her current home a few blocks from the gym. Both her children were in college, and she decided it was time for her to improve her life and health. It took me a few days to gather the courage to tell her about my situation. She listened and didn't express any opinion. She just nodded as if it was an old story. Bonnie began to complain about me playing golf late and going to the gym early. I don't think it really bothered her, except that she was concerned that I was happy and enjoying life. She wanted a monopoly on happiness, and I think she felt she was losing control over me. In the last month, we've only had dinner together a few times, she said one evening when I came home after dark. You spend every evening playing golf, unless it's pouring rain. Do you want us to have dinner together every evening next week? I offered. It doesn't have to be every night, Brian, she cautioned. We could just plan one evening. I'll still have to work late anyway. I see. You want me to take a break from golf one evening of your choice. Then let's plan for Tuesday evening. Will that work? I can never know in advance. It varies. I have a few important clients I'm working with. She puffed up. Bonnie, you don't want to commit to a specific evening, but you want me to sit and wait for a window in your schedule to have dinner together. My time and hobbies are important to me. I'm not going to sit idly again, waiting for you to find time for me. You play, and I work, Bonnie insisted. There's a nuance there, isn't there? She might as well have taken a baseball bat and hit me over the head. She really believed I was so damn stupid that I would feel guilty because she works so hard. She works with Bob, and I'm supposed to feel guilty? It became quite clear that I was on the right track when I decided to build my life for myself. I even started to rethink my attitude towards revenge. Here's what I'll tell you, Bonnie. The next time there's a torrential downpour and you don't have to work, we'll have dinner together. I agreed. Well, thanks a lot. I hate to spoil a good game of golf, she said angrily. Good girl, that's what we'll do, I agreed. Are you seeing someone, Brian? You've been acting strangely lately, Bonnie noted. Suddenly going to the gym and getting into golf after so many years off, it seems suspicious. Bonnie, don't be silly. It's no more suspicious than when you suddenly needed to work so many evenings after all these years of a regular routine, right? I asked. I haven't complained or accused you of seeing some guy, have I? Bonnie blushed and stormed out of the room. The next morning, I was walking on the treadmill next to Tiffany. We were walking briskly, and I never realized there was anyone else in the gym until I heard my name. Brian, who's your friend? A voice demanded through the noise of the machines. I stopped the treadmill. Hey, Bonnie, decided to join me? I greeted her with a broad smile. No, damn it, I want to know who this woman is, Bonnie growled. Tiffany had also heard Bonnie and stopped her treadmill. She walked over to where Bonnie and I were standing. Hello, I'm Tiffany Blunt, she said, extending her hand to Bonnie. Bonnie was suspicious but uncertain. She was surprised by Tiffany's forthrightness. A woman involved in an affair wouldn't be so friendly. Surely Bonnie ought to know this. She slowly took Tiffany's hand and shook it. Hello, Tiffany, my wife responded. I'm Bonnie, Brian's wife. We've been married for 25 years. Do you work with Brian? No, we just work out at the same gym. I'm a lawyer. I don't even know what Brian does. Are you planning to join the gym, Bonnie? Tiffany asked. It would be nice. Honestly, I've thought about it. I just don't like getting up so early, Bonnie replied reluctantly. That was just great. Now Bonnie was considering invading my new life. I couldn't see how this could be good for me. I was about to object, but I realized that would be a tactical mistake. Bonnie would never get up that early just to keep an eye on me. Her approach was to make me quit. It would be much easier to keep track of me if I were just sleeping in bed. So why did you get up so early? I asked. Is something wrong? No, I just needed to get up early for work today. So I decided to stop by here and see what it was like, Bonnie offered her explanation. I knew that was a lie. She never had to get up 2 hours earlier. She got up early to come to the gym just to check on me. Well, let her be jealous of Tiffany. She found me with an attractive woman. Bonnie will understand things the way she should, although if she looked around, she would have noticed a few more fit and attractive women in the gym. I was amused by the fact that Bonnie was categorically opposed to me getting any enjoyment out of life. Why was she envious of me? She was having sex several times a week. She was denying me sex at her lover's request, and to avoid the likelihood that I would discover her charms had recently been used. What did she really want? I wonder if she even knew. I was doing nothing wrong, and I didn't care. I was getting my life together, and I liked it. Bonnie talked to me about nothing for a few minutes, then left. I returned to my treadmill where Tiffany was waiting. She thinks you're up to something, Brian. It was obvious that she was checking out the gym. You, me, and all the other women here, Tiffany stated. People always project their behavior onto others. If they cheat, they assume others do too. Your wife doesn't trust you at all. It's ironic, but very typical. My husband always suspected me without any reason. He was unfaithful, so he thought I must be unfaithful too. I thought about what Tiffany had said for the rest of the day. I left work early to play 18 holes of golf. I didn't play particularly well because I was thinking about what to do with Bonnie. Sooner or later, I would have to let her know that I knew everything. What then? Divorce seemed like the only solution, although the thought saddened me. I had been with Bonnie for 25 years, and we had raised 2 wonderful children. It was very unfortunate that she felt a need that she could not satisfy with me, but her affair was unacceptable for any reason. Even if she didn't care about me, it was with a married man with small children. That was unforgivable. When I returned home that night, Bonnie was all smiles. I was even curious about what she had planned, as she rarely acted so warmly, at least towards me. Soon she was sitting next to me on the couch, sipping wine while I enjoyed a cold beer. Brian, we haven't made love for months. Don't you miss it? Don't you want to have sex anymore? She asked. I had expected such a question for weeks. It took her a very long time to express her surprise at my celibacy. Bonnie, I'm a realist. I've directed my energy towards other things that don't require anyone's permission, participation, or pleasure. It really frees me. You've been sending me all kinds of signals that you don't need anything. You didn't need sex with me, so I adapted. I don't believe that's something I need to ask for, fight for, or pay for. Honestly, it's not worth it. Sex should be the result of mutual desire between 2, preferably married, people for their mutual enjoyment. So you think it's my fault, Brian? Bonnie snapped. I've been working a lot, and lately, you haven't been very romantic. You're always playing golf or going to that damn gym. You haven't even made a move on me for months. I suspect that's exactly what bothers you, Bonnie. I haven't asked, so you couldn't deny me. It deprives you of the pleasure of denying me sex when I seem not to mind, doesn't it? That's not true, Brian, Bonnie exclaimed. I just think that a man should be the one to initiate sex. A woman responds to male stimulation. If you don't get a woman in the right mood, she won't want to make love. Well, there shouldn't be a problem if that's the case. You won't feel ready for sex until I run a marathon, wash the car, mow the lawn, find a cure for cancer, and lick you all over until I stand on my head. Damn it, that's just not going to happen. Since you don't feel the desire to have sex, and I don't feel the desire to have it, we're both happy retirees, aren't we? Now Bonnie was really at a loss. She was trying to make me want to have sex with her. She didn't tell me she was aroused, but she wanted me to make love to her. She wanted me to be romantic so that I might or might not access some frequently used hole. That thought did not appeal to me. This game no longer excited me. If you don't want to have sex with me, Brian, I have to assume you might be having an affair, she said. I'll burn you to the ground if you're having an affair. Keep that in mind. She angered me. I couldn't believe how hypocritical she was. She was having sex 2 or 3 times a week, and she was angry that I might think of doing the same. What kind of logic is that? At that moment, I decided to seek revenge. Here's what I'll tell you, Bonnie. To prove it to you, let's go to our lawyer and draw up a contract that states if I cheat on you at any time, you will get the house and all our savings. If I'm such a terrible husband, I should suffer for my reckless actions, I suggested. Does that sound like a man who's having an affair? I think you could be offering this just to throw me off track, Brian. I know how cunning you are. I think I'll accept your offer, she agreed. All right, I replied. I'll call the lawyer tomorrow and set up an appointment. I'll tell him we want the documents ready when we arrive. Our marriage had no future. I knew I could no longer ignore Bonnie's infidelity, but I had previously hesitated to take the steps necessary to end it. It took some time, but now I was ready to take the next step towards reclaiming my life. 3 days later, we arrived at the lawyer's office. I had come straight from work, as had Bonnie. When I entered, she was in the waiting hall. I sat next to her and smiled. A few minutes later, the secretary escorted us into the lawyer's office. We exchanged the usual pleasantries and got down to business. I was curious to see Bonnie's reaction to this proposal. "This is a bit unusual, but certainly we can do as you wish," the lawyer began. "I have a document here which states that each of you will forfeit your right to the other's house, savings, or pension if found to be unfaithful to your marital vows. The aggrieved spouse essentially receives all the communal property." I watched as the lawyer's words sank in with Bonnie. Her smile disappeared, and she looked worried. "Both of us?" she asked. "I thought it would apply if Brian cheated. Why have you included me?" "My instruction was to draft the document in this manner, Mrs. Myers. Did you want the responsibility to be only on Mr. Myers and not on yourself?" he asked. "Yes, that's what I expected," Bonnie replied. "What are you doing, Brian?" "Well, I really don't see a problem, dear," I responded. "You wanted something that would protect you if I strayed. It sounded like a good idea, and I thought it would be just as good for both of us. Is there any reason you can't sign this? Is something wrong?" I played my best game. I even seemed to myself sincere and unsuspecting. Would she fall into the trap? "I just didn't know that I would also be forfeiting my rights," she replied. "Do you mean that you want me to forfeit my rights, as you call it, but you don't want to accept the same punishment?" I asked. "Why are you so reluctant to sign this document, yet so eager for me to sign it? Is there something I need to know?" Now she was agitated. I could see thoughts racing through her head. Like most unfaithful spouses, she truly believed she would never get caught and didn't want to arouse suspicion by refusing to sign what she wanted me to sign. "Of course not, Brian," Bonnie reassured me. "I'll be happy to sign it." With a stroke of the pen, her fate was sealed. I quickly signed the contract, and our lawyer signed as a witness and notarized the document. He promised to send us our copies, of course, along with his bill. "Let's stop and grab a bite, Bonnie, since we're already out of work," I suggested. "We haven't gone out to dinner together in so long." "I can't tonight, Brian. I need to finish some contracts," Bonnie declined. I knew she was going to meet her lover, and it really annoyed me. I had lost any doubts or feelings of remorse about the contract we had just signed. I was watching TV when Bonnie finally came in. I had baited the hook and was waiting to see if she would bite. "I need to go to Baltimore this weekend, Bonnie. A client has complained about the quality of our product, and I need to see what the problem is and fix it," I told her. "I'll leave Friday morning and be back Sunday afternoon. Is that okay?" "You're giving me too little notice, Brian," Bonnie said. "But if you need to go, you should go. I'll just have a quiet weekend at home." I knew she was thrilled, but she also knew better than to show it. Why not throw a fit as she knows how to, while keeping everything normal? On Friday evening, I quietly opened the door to our bedroom and entered the room. I reached for the light switch and flicked it on. Bonnie blinked at the suddenly lit light and looked at me. Bob had his hands on her chest while she bounced on him. They were so surprised by the sudden intrusion that they didn't even stop having sex. "Hello, Bonnie. How's it going, Bob?" I asked rhetorically as I entered the room. "Nice breasts you've got in your hands, aren't they?" "Bonnie, I have something for you, though actually, this gentleman has something for you." The constable I had hired to serve the divorce papers approached Bonnie and served her. I think he spent a bit more time watching Bob's hands gripping Bonnie's breasts, but this would only work in my favor if he had to testify in court. He nodded at Bonnie and left the room. Bonnie, finally realizing she was in a compromising position, got off Bob and slipped under the blanket with him. She tried to speak, but no words came out. "I don't want you to feel left out, Bob," I continued. "Your wife is here and wants to say a few words to you." "Mrs. James, you have the floor," I said with a smile, stepping aside so everyone could see this scoundrel's wife standing behind me. "Pathetic scoundrel. Never come home again. My parents were right about you, you bastard. I wish I could rip off your sausage and feed it to you. You'd better sleep with this old creature than with your own wife." She yelled. Bonnie flinched at her words, but expressed no protest. She and Bob just shrunk under the sheets while his wife raged. "You can keep this sloppy old creature because I'm divorcing you, and I'm pretty sure I'll get a good settlement. Mr. Myers was kind enough to offer his testimony if I need it. I'm sure the constable will also make a good witness." I promised Mr. Myers I'd keep this crap away. She nearly giggled and pressed against the wall. That was my line, you bastard. I intervened as I reached out and grabbed Bob's thinning hair. We have a little problem here, I said calmly. There's a man in my house in my bed and with my wife, and it's not me. I lifted him up and dragged him into the hallway. He squirmed, but I kept his head low and kept moving so he couldn't put up any real resistance. I dragged him down the stairs, literally. After he fell halfway, I just kept going. He managed to get up, and we reached the door. I opened it, pulled him out onto the porch, and kicked him onto the driveway. Then I went back inside. I looked up the stairs and saw his wife standing there, smiling through tears. In the bedroom, I heard Bonnie finally start to sob. I escorted Mrs. James to her car and drove her home. I figured Bob must have had keys hidden either in his car or in his backside because his car left my driveway. I know some might think I should have slept with his wife for revenge, but that thought never crossed my mind. She was a suffering woman. I would have been the worst scoundrel if I had caused her further harm. If you stoop to the level of those you despise, then you have no reason to despise them, right? When I got back home, Bonnie had packed some clothes and was carrying her suitcase down the stairs. I was very glad that she didn't start telling me that it was just sex and that she really loved me and only me. I concluded that she did not love me, and I wondered if she ever loved herself. Her actions towards me were cruel, bordering on sadistic. Humiliating me was not arousing. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and went back to the living room. She looked at me with a mix of anger and sadness. "You knew all along and set me up, didn't you?" she asked. I've always felt that those who seek revenge, much like terrorists, cannot truly be effective unless the victim knows who did it to them and why. You've always been clever, Bonnie. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I nodded at her and opened the cold beer. Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments, and we'll see you.